What's a movie world? We've just seen the second most anticipated movie of the summer behind Dark Knight, you'd say, right?
Prometheus, Dark Knight, and then right in between,
Magic Mike.
Boom! Oh.
We didn't see it,
No,
seriously.
we went to see Spider-Man.
Though, I think you missed the audition calls for Magic Mike.
Funny story behind that, actually.
The Amazing Spider-Man.
Not so amazing.
At what point did you realize it was not going to be...
When it was like 45 minutes in, and we still hadn't gotten like one taste of web slinging. It is Peter Parker, the Amazing Spider-Man, and I get that. Like in the Marvel universe, Peter Parker is like the most character-centric. It was like literally like 10% web slinging action, and 90% Andrew Garfield bullshit. Like,
I was just really surprised at how... it's like, fill in the blanks, here's the things we need to do for an origin story.
Right, checkpoint, here's the radioactive spider, here's Uncle Ben getting shot, here's with great power comes great responsibility, check, check, check. And meanwhile, we're just stuck waiting. Like, okay.
It felt like everybody was just waiting.
Like,
okay, we know this, we know this.
And so,
let's get to the cool, maybe new fighting, new angles.
Which was, because like, it's the guy that directed 500 Days of Summer.
Mark Webb.
And he's got like also music videos background, so my concern was that the action wasn't going to be good enough.
Yeah.
Well, the action was awesome.
Action was the best part of it.
Best part of it, hands down. It was all the other crap that was just...
Very inventive visuals, cool angles of Spider-Man.
Definitely.
You thought that maybe Sam Raimi kind of used them all
a
up.
little bit, yeah, but no.
They thought that through.
Like that kind of stuff, exactly.
But the problem still continues where it's really... visuals and everything are amazing, but story and characters are
Which is annoying because they spent so much time with the story and the characters.
Right.
It would have been that big a problem if it was kind of just like a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
But that was the majority of the movie.
Right.
It was like a romantic comedy with like web slinging thrown in here and there, interspersed.
Very quiet audience.
Yeah, not a lot of cheering.
Some of the jokes work, but there's not a lot of cheering, not a lot of like
no
really
applause
into
at the
it.
end. Yeah, no one was really into it. Very
Stanley,
anemic.
best cameo maybe of the Marvel
series was him. That was the one funny scene. Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose what I thought was going to happen was he was going to be the creepy janitor that keeps trying to get Peter alone in the boys' locker room.
That's going really dark. They wanted to do like a Batman Begins version. That's the
way to do it. Yeah.
That's like the 7 version of it. We need David Fincher to direct this. 3D was not even spectacular.
No.
Thing.
Yeah.
3D
because you think there'd be a web shot coming at you, but there's not. So will I ever see this movie ever again?
No, I would not.
If it was like on television and I was doing something around the house, then I would like leave it on, I guess. But I'm not going to go out of my way to ever watch it again.
For this kind of property and for the money available and what you could do with it, it's too average to be acceptable. It doesn't beat Spider-Man 1 or 2.
Nope. It beats
3. It beats 3. It beats 3.
3 was more entertaining on a purely like what the fuck is going on level. And that's it.
I would give this a rental.
Rental. Yeah, totally. Rental.
We're about to break all these reasons down in a spoiler-filled review, so stop this now if you don't want to have anything ruined. And if you don't care, or if you've seen it already, let's go hang out and do it.
Oh, the big post-credits teaser, Frank Langella, naked at a sewing machine, humming softly to himself. And he holds up what appears to be a giant green suit covered in feathers.
Again,
that would have been so much cooler.
That's your David Fincher 7 version.
That's my version.
We're getting dark. It's getting dark.
Exactly.
Now.
But come on, Langella's the vulture. Come on.
Anything with Frank Langella.
Exactly.
You got to do it.
Yeah. Is he still alive?
Reboot.
Spider-Man,
2012.
Spider-Man does everything James Garfield does, which is stand around and look depressed and bitch and moan and occasionally look pensive.
And the scripts makes no sense. Here's the
amazing Spider-Man.
Nothing makes any sense. The story is the same story we all know, right?
Reboot. It's the same origin, which is my same problem we had with Nightmare on Elm Street, which is that going into Spider-Man, I can't imagine a single person alive that does not know the Spider-Man origin story. That is not familiar with the radioactive spider and Uncle Ben and the letting the criminal go, and with great power comes great responsibility, and all that stuff. I mean, the basic, the details, like how it is played out can change, but it's still the same notes, and he has to hit every time. And the same thing with Nightmare on Elm Street, where it's just, we know this, so why are you making us go through it again? If you have ever read the comic books, you know it. If you saw the original Spider-Man, which again, we're rebooting something that came out 10 years ago.
I mean, Tobey Maguire is still young looking enough to still play Spider-Man.
I kind of feel like they rebooted it because it was like a Batman Robin type scenario, which went so off the rails in the third one.
Okay.
They kind of had to like, all right, like
I wish they would have just made it seriously. Give me a fourth movie. Tobey Maguire wakes up and it's a dream.
I'll accept that. Give me a mulligan and redo Venom without Topher Grace.
Yeah.
Nothing against Topher Grace, but he's no business being Venom. But anyway.
Well, I think it was just the bad writing, and it's just it's a cancer that is eating away the heart and soul of big screen storytelling. The only place to get it now is TV
or something that happens to be made by Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
or Christopher Nolan.
Or there's that select few of director-writers, of storytellers that know what they're doing.
Right.
But if it comes out of the big machine, just forget about it. I'm so disheartened by this movie.
Because it's such an average movie. That's the problem. It's because it has such potential because the action sequences are really wonderful and inventive
like every
and
movie,
fun.
Though.
And I mean, that's really nice to look at and really smart and does interesting things. And the technology is there now where it's like watching a comic book come to life.
I guess the screenwriting rule is always any genre or anything that's not drama is just drama plus genre. Everything should at its heart be a drama. And then if it's gonna be a drama that happens to be in the future, that happens to be in a world where there's a Spider-Man. Just because there's this genre to it doesn't mean it should give it a free pass that the drama, the human conflict doesn't work.
Well, and here's the problem also is it's not like one of those examples where they just glossed over the drama. No, they wallowed in it. That was the majority of the movie, was the character, the relationship. The problem is it was all one-dimensional. It was all completely everything we've seen before played out again for the umpteenth time.
It was like the Cliff Notes version of Spider-Man.
The majority of the movie is Andrew Garfield just being Peter Parker. It's like not even until we're most of the way in, I feel like, how long was that movie? It felt like it had 5 acts. It felt like it went on forever.
It's like 2 hours and 10 minutes, or 2:16 or something. It's over 2 hours.
Okay, it felt like more than that.
It felt long. Yeah, it felt very long.
Yeah, because it takes forever for him to get to the web sling to begin with.
Yeah.
And when he does, it's a lot of fun. When he's discovering his powers, that's so really well done. How he doesn't know how strong he is. He doesn't get his own strength, and like the scene where he's accidentally kicking everyone's ass. He's so apologetic and everything. That's well executed. Or the scene where he's like in the skate park coming into his own, that's cool. But then we get him and Gwen Stacy, and then him and just the Dennis Leary.
Well, you know what? I actually like the Dennis Leary character. Ask yourself this question: when did there seem to be the most dramatic tension?
It was Dennis Leary
come alive when he was there.
Yes.
Because this character had a very solid point of view, and he would never let Peter off easy. He was providing the conflict, and the rest of the movie really
there wasn't any conflict.
There really isn't. It's just
no dramatic conflict.
Just filling in the blanks of here's things we're supposed to do. All the other characters, even Dr. Connors, it doesn't become clear really what he wants or why he's doing things. He's like forced to do things. It's not really born out of who he is and his passion. The way that this screenplay is written, nothing is created because of the character's desires. They're reacting to everything. Uncle Ben happens to be walking down the streets where Peter's stopping at the mart and he runs into the dude. At least in this Tobey Maguire version, it was more organic and you can kind of believe it.
It's never a good sign when Dennis Leary is your emotional center. Like, first of that, if he's the crux that your dramatic dialogue is revolving around, that solves a problem. I mean, granted, yes, Demolition Man, he was the voice of the people.
He was
but speaking of voice of the people, that got so heavy-handed at the end when all the people are rallying around Spider-Man. Like, he's the hero of the people. Hey, what's that? Kowalski, call Enrique, get Iglesias. We need more ethnic stereotypes to man the construction.
There were good ideas here. Again, just like there were good visual ideas. How can Spider-Man swing through the air in a new kind of way? The hologram technology for when they visit Oscorp. A movie has to be believable enough within its universe for us to suspend our disbelief, but we can't turn off the logic. The smarter a movie is, the dumber we can be.
Right.
The dumber it is, it kicks our brains into gear. Oscorp, hey, I can just pick up this ID without showing my ID. Yeah. I can wander through the hallways.
And first of all, what happened to poor, whatever that kid's name was? Rodrigo had the opportunity of a lifetime to participate with Oscorp and intern there. It could have changed his life. You know, he gets pulled out by security because of damn old Peter Parker.
Well, okay, Peter Parker, he's kind of a douche here.
Oh yeah, that's
Is
one
that
thing
how he is in the comics?
And that's one thing I did like about it, though. Yes, is he's the wisecracking, making jokes and stuff. In the beginning of his career, he's kind of a douchebag because he gets that taste of power.
Right.
Like he's able to fight back against. He's able to take down the bully. He's able to get go after revenge on the bad guy. And first, he doesn't want it. He doesn't want to get involved with anybody. And that was the one dramatic character arc that I did buy. Was that when he made that transition to I have the power to do this, therefore it's my responsibility to do it. I bought that. I did.
Well, because anytime I see Martin Sheen in a movie, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
I like him a lot.
Yeah.
So he does that speech of, here's what your dad believed, that if you have...
Right.
Now, he didn't quote the exact classic, with great power comes great responsibility, but he
Right.
did play on that,
Yes.
which was very nice. The big thing for me that I'm always looking for with screenplays and characters is they enter a scene. It's going to be a dramatic scene of conflict. They have to enter a scene with that point of view, a certain point of view, a certain idea of here's what I think is right. If they're then in dramatic conflict with another character, that character also thinks they're right. Between that battle, someone's mind is going to be changed. That's, the stress of that human interaction eventually creates that jolt of new consciousness within a person. And that's the whole thing of dramatic storytelling, is that through the conflict, through the battle, how is Peter Parker before he gets these powers? He looks around a corner and he's able to memorize this complex graph. That was so ridiculous.
It would have been much easier if it was just a key. That would have. It was just, the guy just had a key or like a classic key
but he had
card.
like a words with friends, new game, Jenga game or whatever, Zynga game.
Exactly.
We're supposed to believe that Peter Parker, before he got his powers, was such a genius that he could just take a glimpse, get it, go in there. Oh, there's this wall of spiders releasing some kind of thread. It looked really cool.
Yeah,
I'm going to walk in the middle of it. I'm going to walk in all this. And then Gwen Stacy, why is she there? There was no reason for her to be there at all.
Also, I like that her scientific outfit is wearing the go-go boots with the mini skirt, a la like Nancy Sinatra. Yeah. But with a lab coat. What was that weird thing? It looked like her and Connors had a thing for a second.
Okay. There was like a weird look going on?
Yeah, there was a weird thing going on there.
If we talk about her motivation, she seems very, very smart, doing her thing. I guess after Peter schooled the bully, then she just gets all excited for him.
She becomes totally one-dimensional, and she's just totally wet for him the entire movie. And that's it. Like, that's her whole character now. She stops being interesting. She stops being an actual person and just becomes the prize.
Here's a perfect example of what's wrong with the movie. It's like with the characters. I love the scene for the idea of when they're in the hallway and there's that cool, awkward teenage love thing where it's like, so do you wanna, and she's like, no, the first thing. But they haven't said anything,
Right, it's cute.
Nice kind of 500 Days of Summer, Mark Webb kind of bringing back his skills for that. But it was very forced because there's no reason for her to be so head over heels. She was the girl who's like, that doesn't impress me. But it's like, we have to get them to fall in love. So these are the steps that have to take place in this movie instead of thinking of something new.
Instead of thinking that happens organically or would happen out of actual character motivation, just, again, plot points. Right. Plot points driving behavior rather than behavior driving plot.
Boom. Right there.
It's so funny because we were always talking about how we want to see character, we want to see drama and stuff, but that doesn't mean we want empty dialogue and empty plot motive. You know what I mean? It's this big difference between not action does not equal drama.
Right.
You know? It just equals wasting my time. In the Marvel Universe, one of the things they're very well known for, especially from the Stan Lee Ditko era, is creating these heroes where the interesting part of them is not necessarily the costume part, but the man behind the costume. So, and it was Peter Parker, the Amazing Spider-Man, or the Spectacular Spider-Man, was the title of the original, if I remember correctly, or one of the spin-offs. They did so many titles. Even in the comic books, though, Spider-Man is dressed as Spider-Man like 90% of the book. Like, he's not, he's not most of the time Peter Parker. And in this movie, he spends most of the time as Spider-Man with his mask off, which is a pet peeve of mine in superhero movies where, like, the hero always reveals himself to love interest. Like, they've kissed once, and all of a sudden, Vicky Vale, I have something to tell you. Like, I'm Batman. Really? Yeah. Like, no. I could buy him as kind of when he was being, like, cool with power. Like, okay, now I'm a badass now after being a nerd for so long. I bought that. I bought him being awkward. He was kind of a spaz at times, which I liked. I couldn't buy when he was the whole Uncle Ben death scene because there was no emotional resonance there for me whatsoever. Because I know it's a plot point. It's not an actual event to me. Do you know if that makes sense? Because I know it's coming. And even if I didn't know the world of Spider-Man, I still don't think it would have been moving because it was so just generic.
The responsibility of movie making It's always tough when it's an adaptation of something that's beloved by millions. On the one hand, you always want to approach any story on the big screen with, let's assume no one's ever read anything that's Spider-Man. Can we make it a good movie?
Right.
And then now you have to backtrack and say, well, how can we make it as authentic or connect to the source material well enough to respect it, but not be hindered by it, not be handcuffed by what it is in that medium. Because movies can do things that comics can and vice versa. So you enjoy it for what each medium provides. You don't want to just be going through and saying, okay, checklist. We have to have the Uncle Ben death scene exactly like it was in the book. Or he's got to find Gwen Stacy the way that he did in the book. You can make it newer, be inventive a little bit, but isn't it ridiculous that he falls through the roof and he falls
in the wrestling and sees the luchador mat? But
it's almost like he falls on the old set of the first Sam Raimi version.
Yeah, right.
And it's just kind of like they're saying, like, well, this movie did it right. Let's just go with this idea again. After he's been chasing a criminal who I guess somebody cloned this guy. And there's 500 of these guys, except one's got a tattoo on his wrist.
Right, and he never found him. You know what it reminded me of totally? Was Unbreakable, where the whole movie
is Act 1. It's Act 1.
Yeah, the whole movie is Act 1. Even though it was 5 acts, it still
That
felt like
is
it was
really
the
great
build-up.
Yeah.
And we talk about cinematic blue balls.
Yeah.
I got action movie. I got superhero blue balls like nobody's business.
Cinematic blue balls, and this was basically the amazing Fluffer Man. We're getting worked up for 2 hours, and we're going to have to wait 2 years to have that pay off. Because, of course, we're like, okay, let's just have Connors turn into this thing already.
Right.
And so we can get the action going. I mean, there's basically only one major action set piece in a 2-hour movie, right? In a 2-hour superhero movie. When we see Peter Parker early in the movie, I kind of didn't buy that he was weak or nerdy because he stood up to the bully right away.
And not only that, he stood up to the bully right away, he looks like a H&M model. All right? I'm sorry, Andrew Garfield is not a nerd.
And that could have easily been solved where early on you do some trick like they did in the first one where you put glasses or just dress him up like a nerd or whatever.
Maybe give him a dorky haircut as opposed to he just stepped out of the salon.
Right.
You know, he got a total hipster, like the sleeveless gloves.
Yeah,
and like the
emo skater or whatever.
Yeah, he looks like an emo skater kid.
Yeah.
Not at all like a bookish science nerd.
So after he gets powered up, gains some confidence, ladies and people are like responding to him like a leader, then you can have him kind of emerge as this new person, which again, that would imply some kind of visual and emotional character change. Where you start him off a certain way, maybe the loss of his father has closed him down a little bit, he's kind of nerdy, keeps to himself, and that would also justify why Gwen Stacy later would be more attracted to him. There's no movement up or down, it just kind of already starts where it's going to be at the end. So now, let's see how much of this is motivated by what they do versus it just keeps happening to them.
Yeah.
A lot of this is just happening. So they're on the roof talking after the dinner with the father, which is a good dramatic little tense scene. Andrew Garfield or Spider-Man is talking about what Spider-Man is, and the cop's point of view is that he's a vigilante, blah, blah, blah.
And I also like that Andrew Garfield wasn't being a dick about it.
And then they go up on the roof and they have a romantic moment, and there's no motivation for him to tell her his identity.
Not at all.
Other than just to be out there.
Right.
Now, would it be different if there was some kind of thing that had happened before where I'll lose you if I don't tell you, you're mad because I'm always out at night?
But they haven't even kissed yet.
And then it's like, oh, your dad needs you. Oh, we got to break up the scene. And then again at the end, she has to turn with the umbrella and say, my dad made you promise, didn't he? Instead of him just calling it out and just saying it.
They kind of had to do the same thing they did with Goblin in the first Raimi one, which is Lizard like talking to himself. You know, being crazy in his own head. Called to complain about.
It was the goblin.
Yeah, it was Goblin.
Now the Lizard's also crazy talking to himself.
In comic books, though, that is a common thing where the villains will like talk to themselves. Okay. So it's hard to be that picky about it because that does happen frequently in the comic book. You know what I mean?
Did it bother you how fast?
But again, show don't tell.
Into Spider-Man, he gets bitten, and on the train ride home, he's already got the powers.
That didn't bother me so much, and I liked how his reaction to him. The way that he showed how he did the spider sense, how that appeared, like that was all really well done. And I wanted more of that. I wanted more superhero in my superhero movie.
What would it take for this movie to have been a quality reboot?
That's a good question. If you're going to reboot Spider-Man, it's because we have the technology to do it so well. The Sam Raimi stuff was great for its time. And still, if you can go back and watch the first 2 movies, and they're still really good. I would say condense, make him become Spider-Man within the first 20 minutes. My first act ends with Uncle Ben dying. Boom, that's first act. He gets his, he's got his powers. He's chosen to become Spider-Man. Get to the action as fast as possible. I know you have to hit all the points, but you don't have to linger on them. Do you know what I mean? Like you don't have to play them out when we know what they are.
That phrasing that you just used is a key, when we know what they are. I would kind of want it to be inventive enough, to change it enough, where we kind of didn't know what they were, or where they're emotionally impactful in a different way. There's a great scene, and I kind of feel it was the subconscious of the screenwriters popping up within the screenplay, where there's towards the end the class, and there's the writer discussion.
Yes.
They say,
yes.
so-and-so said there's only 10 stories. Well, I'm here to tell you they were wrong. There's only one. Who am I? Did the Amazing Spider-Man answer the question, who am I? Did it even attempt to ask it?
Did it answer the question for the franchise? For what it's trying to do to be as a movie? Is it trying to be an action movie? Is it trying to be a romance? Is it trying to be a property? Is it
Supposedly, this was made because there's a certain amount of years that a studio can hold a property, and I think Sony was coming to the end of Spider-Man, so they were
had
like,
to get it
let's
out.
just throw this out there.
Yeah.
It's always going to come down to the heart of the character, Peter Parker. Why not make him more, not a 50s or 60s style teenager, make him more of a 2000 and teenager. What are the fantasies and the dreams of a nerd like that? If he was a nerd,
right,
and he's getting picked on by the bully, what would the nerd really want? And now that he gets bitten, the bite of the spider is a symbol of a bite of fortune, of your wishes coming true. Now you get to be more powerful than anybody in the school. As a kid, now what do you do with that power? There's your responsibility. And as a teenager, you probably would abuse the hell out of it first.
Yeah, maybe he goes on a crime spree. Maybe like he's the one that's like just knocking over, or just maybe not purposefully.
Maybe you would have to do a couple things that don't exactly fall in line with the original comic, but again, this is a cultural myth we've adopted, so it has to adapt to the current times.
If the archetype you need to hit is he is responsible for his uncle's death by his passivity of not acting when he could have, maybe make that a little more direct. The way he has it now, this was even, I think, less direct than the original comic book story when he's at the wrestling gig and the guy robs the gig.
Yeah, the gig.
And he says, wait, he's like, that's not my concern. Even then, in the movie, the clerk's a dick to him.
Right.
So when he lets the guy go, doesn't even think twice about it, it's kind of like, well, F you to the clerk. But in that one, he's just like, that's not my business. I don't care. Like, I'm not here to fight crime.
And by the way, Uncle Ben could have just went like, yo, I'm cool.
Yeah,
back up.
He didn't have to go grab that gun. There was no reason for that. No reason whatsoever.
In the Sam Raimi version, the guy wanted his car.
Right.
Sam Raimi, before he made Spider-Man, had cut his cinematic teeth on so many movies that his vision for that was so clear, and he took the time to allow the character's interaction to create what the next scene's going to be, to create a ripple effect of what we can expect. I haven't been in a movie that's this big or this high profile in the summer and sensed the boredom of everyone around us.
You would feel it. Everyone was just waiting for the movie to end. I mean, looking at our watches, just waiting for like, okay, well, let's get it going here. You could feel the lack of energy.
Which the exact opposite of that would be the Avengers.
Right, yes. It was electric. It was like you could feel everyone laughing, applauding, and under bated breath of what's going to happen next.
There's this thing in screenwriting called a drive out. Usually scenes end with some kind of a setup that implies an unresolved dramatic moment that's going to be further continued in a future scene. And a lot of times you didn't get that here. And that's why we're kind of just bored, because we're like, well, what else are we looking forward to? So what else is going to happen, you know?
It was almost like every scene raised its own issue and then solved it within that scene.
Yes.
None of the issues were ever that interesting to begin with.
Exactly.
So it's like, I'm going to make a shot, and then right away Peter's there. And then, okay, we're done with that. Every hiccup in the relationship was brought up and then covered in that scene, almost.
Here's just an idea. What if Aunt May would have been blaming Peter a little bit?
Yeah, right.
Had an unresolved hostility towards him because Uncle Ben went out to chase after him.
Right, she doesn't know anything about the Spider-Man thing, but he went out because of him.
Right.
So
what if every time they're in a scene,
there's that in the background?
Yeah, instead of just making her the sweet old lady who's making meatloaf and waiting, you give each character, make them affected by what happens, and then every time they're in a scene with someone, ideally in a great dramatic film, nobody is in love with the main character. No one's a friend 100% with the main character.
Yeah, there's always conflict.
There's always conflict, like with everyone. And you don't have to force that, but if it's justified. So maybe, as a woman who just lost a life partner, you kind of would be like, you dick, I'm mad at you because Uncle Ben wouldn't have been out.
Yeah.
It's an example of what you can go with. And what if Gwen Stacy was blaming Peter for messing up her chance at Oscorp? Maybe she really wants to have...
Why didn't she blame him for her dad dying?
Yeah.
That's why I assumed they were going with that, and they didn't.
My dad just died, and everyone was there but you. You can still touch my cheek.
Right. And she instantly forgave him. You can't always keep your promises. Those are the best kind. I'm still going to bang you.
These heavy dramatic things happen.
And then they negate them immediately.
That's what needed to happen here more was just a consistency of consequences for actions.
In good writing, the script is created from the needs of the characters, not the other way around.
And it's why we are excited for The Dark Knight Rises.
Right.
Not because of the flying Batmobile, which will be cool.
Which will be cool. But that's just my least favorite element. I'm actually a little disappointed in the fly, just from the previews. Like, oh,
yeah.
it's a cute line. Like,
yeah.
It's not a car. But like, it's like...
Nolan's been really good about... This series is not
grounded
about...
in reality, the gadgets.
Super gadgets or anything.
Right.
It's really... And the early trailers for this film is The Journey Ends.
Yeah.
What other series starts the advertising with The Journey is ending?
Yeah. Not the plot, not the movie is ending, not the franchise is ending.
Yeah.
The journey.
Yeah. Or here's some... Again, they are showing us explosions in Gotham and ruins and things like that. But we're really focusing on where's Batman going to go from here? That's what movies need to return to.
Or aspire to. Return to is assuming they've always done that, which they have not. There's been hits or misses in every...
Return of the Jedi is a good example of kind of the duality of what we look for, where we want that genre space battle stuff, the kid comedy kind of stuff, Endor stuff, but what really links it together is the heart and soul of Luke, Emperor, and Darth.
Yeah.
If you take that out of that movie, Return of the Jedi is what we're getting now with all the movies.
Yes, very good point.
We need to have more tell your sister you were right. I have to tell you right now that Jonas again proved his screenwriting powers in this movie, because as the film is ending, Jonas called it at least almost a full minute before it was revealed on the screen. And I just tip my cap to him for doing that.
It's because I have an insanely effective radar for bad screenwriting tropes. It's just all it is. I spot a cliche a mile away.
It was a cliche payoff.
It was a cliche callback. It was a total cliche. So if you've seen it, the eggs. What we're talking about is the eggs. Where before he's out web slinging all night, getting beat up. He's on the phone with her. Yeah, man. Okay, eggs, organic eggs. Got it. And then he comes home, he's all beaten up, and it's like, did you get the eggs? It's like, no, I'm sorry, I didn't get I'll go get them. It's like, no, you won't, you're always out, and they have this kind of dramatic moment about it.
Right.
Done, that was like, hours ago. That was like way back at the beginning of the movie. So at the end...
He comes back home, he's all beat up.
And the minute he walks in the door, I turn to NPC here, he walks in the door, Aunt May greets him, and I go... brought you the eggs.
And as soon as you said it, I said, it's going to happen, and that's amazing. And 30 seconds later, they break out the eggs, and there's a nice hug, and it's funny, and it's a cliche, but it's proof that, Jonas, you should be writing, and you should be somehow influencing the cinema here, because...
I've seen so many movies, I know storytelling, and I know a bad cliche when I see it, I can see it coming a mile away. Yeah. It's the same reason that I could see Abraham Vampire Hunter when I was able to call all, like, how much silver do we need? All of it.
Right.
Where's the what? Right here.
Yeah.
Like all those.
And that's a very 1980s sort of action movie sort of education.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but I guess you probably shouldn't be able to do that so often.
No, it shouldn't come into a play so often in modern storytelling.
Yeah.
So
I think one moment that stuck out here for me in terms of what this film maybe failed to do with having a vision is like noticing the Christopher Nolan Batman films, not to keep using those as the standard.
Right.
When Spider-Man here kind of accidentally discovers to do the swinging when he's skateboarding, there's a Coldplay song playing.
Yeah.
And it gets that kind of music video-y moment.
Right.
It's very pop culture. Here's a song that's current. There's never any song like that in any of the Batman movies, right?
No, not at all.
So I think like when you decide to incorporate that, it really takes away from its own reality in a sense. One last thing would be, think back to your favorite films. At least 90% of them have memorable, powerful scores. Mm-hmm. This music was totally uneven.
Was there a score?
It was like this weird melodramatic piano.
Remember that scene where the horror movie cliche?
Yeah.
With that bring, like that the string section?
Yeah.
That's in every bad horror movie?
Like out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's like that with the scream when the guy gets shot and falls off the horse. Like they use it all the horror.
Yeah.
That same thing they pulled out.
Absolutely. Again, that was another Gwen Stacy forced moment when like he's fighting at the school. The lizard just shows up at the school.
Right,
there's no motivation for him to go to the school other than he finds the camera with Peter Parker's name on the back. Spider-Man. I know you're a teenager, but you're setting up a camera to take pictures of the lizard because you're going to do research.
That's the other thing is that, in the comic book...
He doesn't work for the paper, though.
Yeah, so there's no reason for it. Yeah,
It's like, why is he a photographer? He should be using his iPhone or something.
Yeah.
again, this film is so uneven with taking the classic elements and bringing new elements that they don't merge together, and then the character motivations are just so...
It's really interesting, though. One of the things I keep thinking about was, like, how, of all the Marvel movies, like, the formula they established for the Avengers, for all the Avengers movies was, like, fun-loving. You know what I mean? Was, like, funny... but like lots of good action, but like mostly just fun and light.
Yeah.
This Spider-Man, which should be the funnest and lightest of them all,
out of all of them,
was the most serious. Went the opposite direction.
Yeah. And it was tedious and boring.
And again, when we talk about how we want drama, how we want character motivation, we want reality. And so you can have a movie that's fun and light.
Yeah.
Like the world of Iron Man was way more real than this because it came out of Tony's character, which was a complete id-driven, like, you know, narcissistic playboy.
Well, like you've said many times, with Chicago being kind of the improv capital, the key of improv is firm your beliefs in the character, and they will react based on who they are. It's those reactions that make this different from any other experience. It's always the same stage, but it's the different reactions based on the characters that are going to create something new.
And whereas opposed to that, you create reactions based on what you want the plot to be, then it looks like everything you've seen before. And that's what we were forced to sit through, was 2 hours of everything I've seen before in 8,000 other movies, and then 15 minutes of action dialogue.
Right. And characters just reacting one way early in the movie, then out of nowhere changing the way they react, because their reactions have to generate these are predetermined moments to get to a certain point. It all comes down to big disappointment.
Yeah, big disappointment.
So is this movie hope or movie apocalypse?
Movie apocalypse.
This is movie
Total
apocalypse.
Movie apocalypse.
If you would have asked me at the beginning of the year if I would think this movie's movie apocalypse, I would say no. I want to believe that person can change. I want to believe in hope. I want to believe that there's...
Yeah, I go through that too occasionally.
And then I get slapped by reality.
Get slapped by reality. Every once in a while, Avengers and Dark Knight, and then, but then the rest of the year.
Better than Part 3, but not as good as Part 1 and 2.
Yes.
So there's the place in movie history. We have movie apocalypse. Jonas, update us on what you're up to and where we should be following you.
Yeah, I've got a new writing project I'm doing. I'm part of a Borg-like comedy collective hive mind called Bit City at bitcity.tumblr.com. The idea being every day it's updated with something that you can read in just little bits on pop culture, on sports, on the world around us. It takes about 1 to 3 minutes to sometimes even less. Just a daily thing, click on, get a nice laugh out of, and then you're done before you've even finished your cup of coffee.
Nice. Potato chips for your brain.
Exactly, precisely.
Just like little bites.
Yeah, little bites.
Okay, excellent. Support this man so he can rewrite this script. Here are your eggs, amazing Spider-Man.
I got your eggs, Spider-Man.
I got your eggs right
here.
Our eggs are smashed and broken and disrespected, so... With that, consider yourselves advised. Remember that StoryCorp
always gives us more what we pay for.
Brain-damaging slaps to the face if we pay for them. The more we pay.
Which we do.
Until the next review, long live good movies.